Welcome to Symplicity Conversations, the podcast where business, culture, and community come together to inspire and empower. I'm your host, Catherine Ripley. Each week, we'll explore meaningful conversations about how today's business landscape is shaped by innovation, relationships, and the people behind the progress. From actionable insights and stories from industry leaders to topics like customer experience, fostering strong business relationships, and the role of automation, we've got you covered. Whether you're an entrepreneur navigating growth, a leader focused on building lasting connections, or someone interested in how culture and community drive success, Symplicity Conversations is here to guide you. If you're ready to turn challenges into opportunities and make meaningful strides in your business and community, subscribe now and join the conversation. Get ready to simplify complexity and make an impact with Symplicity Conversations. Welcome to Symplicity Conversations, where we explore the intersection of business, leadership, and technology. Today, I'm joined by Erin Stewart, Senior Director at Success KPI, a company that helps businesses leverage data-driven insights to maximize their success. We'll dive into the evolving landscape of performance metrics, client success stories, and the future of analytics and business strategy. But first, let's start with Symplicity Insights. This is our famous quote of the day. Today's quote is, "The most dangerous kind of waste is the waste we do not recognize," by Shiego Shingo. I love that quote for today's episode because I think that so many companies don't realize the value they have in the data and the analytics, and they're just wasting the opportunity to look at that and make better decision-making off of that. So what a great quote today. Be sure to subscribe to Symplicity Conversations to hear more leaders shaping the future of business and technology. So let's dive in. Erin, I'm so excited that you're here.
I am as well. Thanks so much for the invite.
It's my pleasure. So let's dive right in and can share a little bit about your background and what inspired you to work at Success KPI.
That's a really great question. It's a fun one for me. Interestingly enough, my career started in the kiosk in a mall, selling cell phones. I realized then that building relationships and understanding how to establish credibility and trust with people was something that I really enjoyed. And so from there, I just wanted to do bigger and bigger, products and services and show ways to add value to people and organizations with those. And at that time, people kept coming into the cell phone kiosk and adding the discount onto their account for interactive intelligence. And I thought, what is this place? The FBI? And so I looked it up and I thought, oh, kind of cool, like call center. What is that? Applied and I got a job as a lead generation specialist and started setting appointments for salespeople and learned the space and worked my way up into an individual contributor role. And then actually got recruited to launch bots here in the US with a company out of the East Coast. And so we launched voice bots here using humans behind the scenes to drive the automation before really AI and machine learning came into that space.
Wow, that's so cool. Business is so much about relationships.
So much.
I think people, when they're looking for a new job, they, go search on websites, but it's really about your connections. So you've got to create those connections before you need them. So I always tell people, make sure you're going out onto LinkedIn and expanding your network. When you go to an event, make sure you follow up with LinkedIn connection requests because you never know when those relationships are going to help your situation. So that's just awesome.
It is. Yeah. It was interesting when I was delivering those bots. I started seeing that people weren't measuring them or tracking them, or it was kind of checking a box like, "Ooh, I deployed a bot. And let's celebrate." And that's what made me interested about Success KPI is they were really helping organizations understand the changes that they were making and the investments that they were making, what outcomes those were delivering, and how to make them better over time. And so that's what brought me here.
Oh, that's really cool. And it's exciting to be on the sexy part of technology again. I mean, I used to sell circuits and DSL and PRIs, and it was like, what is all of that? But now we're getting into automation and AI and data and analytics, and it's really exciting to have the information as you look at it and start making those decisions. Say, oh my gosh, let's pivot. Let's go this direction based on the data that I'm seeing. So it's pretty exciting. So it sounds like, your career has really evolved on just you focusing on what's next. I'm here, I'm learning, I'm becoming the expert in what I'm doing, but you kind of always had your eye out a little bit of where can I go from here? Let's talk just for a moment about that and any advice you have for somebody that's maybe in a role where it's a stepping stone, maybe they're early in their career. Do you have any thoughts that you'd want to share about how you kind of navigated that to kind of keep yourself propelled forward?
Yeah, I think one of my biggest superpowers is knowing my weaknesses really well, because to your point, my ability to create relationships and develop trust with people, if I know my weaknesses well, then I can fill those with the people that I meet and leverage their strengths. So I feel like I have this really good, support and crew and, behind me as I wear this superpower cape and walk into situations knowing that I've got a person to call for anything I need.
Yeah.
And that's a whole new level of confidence walking into a room.
And isn't that that's so important to have confidence? And, it takes a village,
So
right?
does, yeah.
You don't make everything happen just yourself. You have to show up. You have to, I love the hungry, humble, and smart, philosophy from Patrick Lencioni, but you really have to bring it. You have to every day, where am I at? Where am I going? Be a goal setter. And I know sometimes maybe that's not a strength of somebody, but just because it's not a strength doesn't mean you can't do it. It just takes a little more effort. And I think, like you said, a superpower, do some self-reflection. What are you really good at? And are you leveraging that? Are you exercising that strength? I love that. And I think when you're likable, it does come easier to have those relationships and foster those relationships. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think the other big thing, and it's been more of a more recent realization, is that, I feel like women from a young age, we've been put in situations where we compete more than we do enable and empower. And so I've really tried to be intentional about making sure to surround myself with women and leveraging each other's strengths, particularly because I have personally seen that I am more successful when I'm leveraging a group of women rather than competing with them.
Yeah.
And it is proven in data that when you have women in leadership, there is more innovation and collaboration. And so I really do want to find ways to do that more.
I think you're 100% right. I'm involved in a group called Inforum, which their mission is to help women lead and succeed. And I think you do see that. Sometimes you see that where women might not be supportive because they feel like they have to compete. But if you can be a giver and help, just karma. She comes around.
Karma's my BFF. She's my bestie.
Yeah. And it should be part of your strategy to do the right thing and, support and encourage women and making sure that as we're stepping up the ladder that we're reaching back and encouraging and educating, because sometimes people don't necessarily have the idea on their own. They need some help. They need somebody to plant the seed, and then what can we do? And I'm working with a new business owner. She's just starting her business, and I've had a couple meetings with her, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm really grateful for you to kind of give me this feedback." I said, "It's my job. If I can shrink some of your learning curve by just simply sharing some of my failures and some of my successes, then I can help you get there faster, because I think about this is my 19th year with Symplicity, and I've learned so much, had lots of failures, had lots of successes. And it really is about how we can help each other meet those successes. And success is different for everyone.
Everyone.
You know, success might mean one thing to one person, another to somebody else. So I think as you're meeting people, making sure you kind of tune into how can I help? What can I do for you? You know, I'm connected to you now. What can I do? And, you know, you can't save the world. You can't do everything, but where you can make a difference, you should, I think.
100% agree.
So let's talk a little bit about Success KPI. What is Success KPI?
So Success KPI's mission is to enable insight that drives collaboration so that you can have action that drives outcomes from the agent to the CEO.
Wow.
And that's a lot.
That is a lot. That is a lot. So is it a contact center product? Is it a automation product? Like, really, let's peel this back.
Sure. So it is a contact center product, and it's full software as a service built on the cloud.
Yep.
It's completely scalable. So from 10 agents using a system in the contact center to 10,000 agents. We have customers with up to 50,000 agents using this platform. And so it is contact center, fully scalable, SaaS, instant activation. And what it does is it immediately, with instant activation, brings your data and your call recordings from your contact center provider into our solution and enables you with insight that allows you to have better conversations, to apply action, to see outcomes.
So for those that might not understand contact center, contact center is typically the heart of how a business interacts with their clients. So we typically see in our head when we hear contact center, a big room, little cubes with people just answering phones or dialing out or taking calls in. But that's changing these days, isn't it? I mean, I think we're seeing contact centers as 5 people in this department that need to take calls from their customers, or 100 people over here that are taking customer service calls, or 3 people in this department. So I feel like call centers since the pandemic have evolved. Instead of 400 people in a room, it might be people working remote all over. It might be a different department. And so contact center software, as we get into this, is really enabling businesses to understand how do they communicate with their clients and how can they better support their clients. So with that being said, Success KPI, if a customer has a contact center, maybe they still have a premise of Avaya or Cisco contact center, or maybe they've already evolved to the cloud and are on, you know, a NICE or Genesis type cloud platform. Success KPI can overlay that, right? You don't have to displace it. You can kind of come in and start solving problems that you might have that your current platforms can't do. Is that correct?
That is. And I do feel like that's a very current topic to discuss, and also a big differentiator in the sense that I'd see a lot of organizations we're engaging with, specifically in the past month or so, say, you know, there's been a lot of move to the cloud. There's been some people who have tried it and are staying prem. But we're looking to figure out how to maximize the value of our investments. So how can you help us get more out of what we already have, right? And so we're talking with organizations about how to do that, to where, you know, if you have investments that you've made and those contracts are staggered out over the next 10 years and you're not planning on hiring more staff, how can you maximize the value of what you have today, right? And that's where we can come in, and we usually like to start with, like, what's your biggest problem you're trying to solve today? And we can figure out how to solve that problem with the tools we have, and that will pay for this. And then the next time you have a challenge, rather than finding another tool, you're going back to this and saying, okay, how do I find this answer?
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it's a lot of effort to forklift a solution and say, I'm going to go away from this and go to that. I think a better strategy is to kind of brainstorm. I like to call them design thinking meetings, where we're going to brainstorm, what are your top 10 problem areas? What are the pain points? And once you start kind of creating that list, then it's like, okay, well, how can we without doing all the effort of changing out a full system, how can we start ingesting the data that will help us solve some of these? Because then you can attach what we call ROIs to those challenges. And you have to know your challenges and then prioritize them, I think, so that you can say, this one will give us a bigger bang for our buck. We should do that first. Because again, you always have to be conscious of what are your executives, what are their initiatives? And the people that we work with, sometimes in IT, sometimes in marketing, sometimes in operations, they all have initiatives.
That's right.
And those all line up to the corporate overall goals of what you have to do. So you really have to, come at this focus with a strategy, right? To say, what are we trying to do? And I love the word ingest, where you guys ingest data and then you just start taking that list that you came up with and just start picking them off.
Yeah. And it's, that process you just described today without something like Success KPI is a manual science experiment, right?
Yeah.
Time consuming, and a lot of times not based on data. Right. So imagine if you were able to type into something that said, tell me, based on the conversations in the past 90 days, what are the top 3 things that are preventing us from getting the outcome we want? And in less than 60 seconds, you have an answer based on data with a way to track it, measure it, and change it.
Yeah.
And that's what this empowers you to do.
And it's so powerful, right? And, businesses are really relying on data these days, or they should be. And I think that they don't know where to go find that. How have the KPIs and analytics evolved to meet those challenges today?
So, that's a good question with our name being Success KPI. When we're working with the global brands today, from small to large, and understanding what KPIs they're tracking. And, to your point, it's been a lot of the same things for a long time: wrap time, talk time, hold time, CSAT, NPS, those sorts of things. So I think what people are really looking to do now is more around custom metrics and combining data sources to really understand what that true metric is, rather than maybe what the call center reporting platform tells you that metric is. So if you've got information from your CRM to tell you what a wrap code is, right, and you have a summary of a call that can tell you some information, being able to validate that what really happened in the call matches that wrap code, and automating those things can really change those types of outcomes.
It's so interesting. I think what I'm starting to see, especially with large and enterprise companies, is they have so many platforms that they're pulling data from. And, it's allowing companies to have the data, but it's disparate. And they don't have the ability to pull it in and make actionable items off of that. So I think some of what we try to focus on at the beginning is, what are those pain points? Where does the data live?
Correct.
And then how can you possibly bring it in? We hear like single pane of glass sometimes, but it's like really a lot of these platforms, they'll have, competing offers like, oh, this one has a chat bot and this one has a chat bot too, but which one do you use? And I think that's part of what the confusion is when you have marketing, operations, and IT that have different initiatives. But at the end of the day, they really need the data that's coming out of their company so that they can make the best decision that will increase revenue. Because isn't that, at the end of the day, somebody's got a revenue goal and somebody's got a reduce expense goal. That's really, when I think of even my small company, I'm always, what can I do to increase revenue?
Reduce cost.
What am I looking at for costs, and how can we, I don't mind, companies spending money, but as long as they know what they're spending it on and there's value added.
Right.
So many times we go in and they don't see that value being added, or they look at, wow, you've been paying this for this amount of time, right? So I love bringing in providers that can help create those actionable items off of the data. And it might be a phased approach, because you just have to start showing some value, right? You have to figure out how can I leverage the information I have, and then put a strategy together. So there is a balance between tracking performance and kind of pulling that meaningful action from the data. And I feel like that's Success KPI's superpower, really.
Yeah, we have a patented playbook builder that lets you take these insights and do something with them. So it's like, okay, great. Now you've answered the question, what are you going to do with it? Right. So being able to actually put action to those outcomes and then track them over time, I think is really where the value comes with an application like this. It's not just, here's where your problems lie. It's here's how we're going to fix it. Here's how we track it. And here's how we make it better. And, I think an example of that, I was talking with a customer yesterday, and they said, we have your solution for, everything you do today, but I've got stakeholders in the business looking at all these bright, shiny things out there for AI. And I keep having to tell them, like, all of these things are just a playbook in Success KPI. Yeah. So let's take all of these stakeholders' needs and figure out how to solve each of their problems in the platform rather than each a different vendor.
Right.
And so that has been a really fun thing to hear from a customer, them realizing that and talking with their stakeholders about it, because the information that an analytics person wants in a call summary is different than what an agent wants in a call summary, different than what a marketing person wants to hear in a call summary. So you have to be able to serve those different stakeholders and in different ways.
So typically with my company, we've dealt with people in the IT department because it's technology, but that has changed. Marketing tends to have the budget for the technology, and then operations typically is in charge of the contact center. So who is the stakeholder that you typically start with when you have an engagement with a new customer?
So it's one of two. To your point, the IT owners typically own the data, but at the same time, they have very extensive architectures that they've built in Snowflake, Tableau, Power BI, Databricks. There's lots of investments that have been made in their own data lakes and data warehouses, and we want to help make their job better and help make sure that the operation teams has what they need without having to always go to this IT team. Yeah. So when we're talking with the IT team, we want to make sure that they know that we're going to handle getting all the data from all of these disparate systems and pushing it to them in a feed that they can always count on the right things there at the right time. And they'll have all the data to do all the things that they do so beautifully. So we're going to empower them. Now, the contact center operators, they're going to want to have all the great visualizations on the data that they need in real time right now to change action and outcome on those calls, emails, text messages that are coming in. So when we're dealing with those senior directors of the call center, COOs, operators, we're really helping remove the time to value in getting the outcomes while still enabling the data providers. So it's really one of the two, and most of the time both.
Yeah. So it could be if you're in operations, you're running a call center, you can talk to IT and say, hey, we need something that kind of pulls all this data together. And then, marketing, they need information to determine, are they being successful in what they're talking to customers about? So I feel like we need to bring to the table something that really all the different stakeholders, the executives have different, initiatives. And so we have to really start somewhere. And we see a lot of shadow IT where marketing heard, an ad and they went and grabbed, some kind of license off a platform and they're starting to do things. And I love when we go in and can we optimize that? Can we kind of pull this together and eliminate some of the noise, because it doesn't help anybody if you're using all these different platforms for no intentional reason.
Yeah. And I think from marketing's perspective, I think what they're really looking for is something that's been hard to find, which is tell me what I'm not looking for. Tell me what people are saying and interacting with us about that I'm not telling you to look for.
Right.
Up until now, right, you've had to program systems to say, tell me if someone says this or if they're looking for that.
Right.
Right. now we can proactively tell you, hey, people are starting to ask these questions or mention this in conversations, and you're not looking for it. Do you want to be?
Yeah.
And realize those top trends that maybe they should be grabbing onto quicker. And that's real value, right? And being able to
It's going to increase revenue
immediately, right? And so it's things like that with these new generative AI analytics solutions that we can offer, like with our solution Deep Prompts, to where, we can really let you know these things, but without you having to program them ahead of time.
Right. I think about in operations, when you're looking at the contact center, you're looking at present of what are they talking about? Who do we need to coach to have a better conversation? So that's the present. Marketing is looking at the future.
Yeah.
What do we need to be offering? What new products do we need to come up with? And it's like, it's really important for a company to understand, no matter where they are on their journey, there's companies like Success KPI that we can bring in to help them really enhance what they're doing and how they're doing it so that they can get those actionable items sooner. I love when you talked about your mission. It just had, 4 keywords in there. So I'd love for you to repeat that. I feel like it's really important. And then how does that mission help you guide in your approach to serving clients?
I'm glad you brought that back up, because it came back to my mind when you were mentioning the stakeholders.
Yeah.
That we have to all make sure that everyone's getting value, right? It goes back to our mission of having impact from the agent all the way to the CEO, right? In our platform, there should be value across that entire spectrum of stakeholders. And that value comes from enabling insight to drive collaboration and action that improves business outcomes from the agent to the CEO.
Right.
So whether you're an agent, a quality manager, an operator, an executive, a marketing specialist, there is something in this solution that will add value to you and be your AI assistant. And our AI strategy is, I'm really proud of our chief product officer and what he's done there. And our strategy around AI is invisible. You should just be able to use our platform and the AI is working and you don't even know it, right? It shouldn't be hard. One of our key values is to make the complex simple. This stuff can be so hard, right?
Yeah.
And so we want to be able to, we can prove it to you with start small, right? Yeah. Turn this on, one challenge to solve. The ROI for that thing will shine bright. And then we can do this just bigger and bigger. And then you're the person who brought this into the organization to solve this one little problem that keeps getting bigger and bigger. And now, that's kind of that trust and credibility thing that we're getting back to again, right? So when it comes to how that helps us with our leading like client success and our clients, because we're typically starting with one challenge to solve, right? We're getting deeper into that organization and finding more challenge to solve and saying, okay, we solved this challenge that was auto QM. Let's take that's a hot topic right now. How do we look at 100% of our calls without hiring more people? We can do that with Gen AI out of the box, but we also have a co-pilot for your quality manager to when they do their manual scores to help them do that more efficiently, just like a co-pilot for your agent or for your supervisor, right? And then we can say, what other areas in your organization could find value in something like this and find another stakeholder to provide value to? So it's really based on this building relationships, starting small, providing value, and driving that insight, collaboration, action, business value, like circle that repeats itself over and over and over again, where we just have these long-term, clients who think of us as more as, partners of their business rather than a vendor.
That's cool. What do you think the biggest challenges that clients face? I mean, technology is rapidly changing. And how do you think Success KPI comes in and just solves that?
I think data, to your point, we do a lot of things with your data and your call recordings, but as everybody knows, data is the baseline for your AI, right? So data is king or queen right now, depending on the world you live in. And in that, it has to be the right data. So there's a lot of hot topic right now around transcripts.
Yep.
The value of having the transcripts of all of your calls and you owning those transcripts is significant, right? And so we do offer the most accurate transcription in the most languages in the globe. And so what we can do is give you that baseline of the most accurate data from all of your systems, normalized,
Right.
with the best call recording transcripts out there in the languages that you need them in. And now you've got the true things that are happening in your organization to apply these tools to and plug in your current investments to drive that value. So I think it really is based in this, having the foundation to grow upon. I like to call it future proofing your contact center.
Right.
Like before you make more investments in migrations or forklifts and things, like, let's get your baseline right and let's ask your data what you should do next.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
I love that. I really love that. And it sounds like, when we think about what sets KPI, Success KPI apart from other service providers, it's how you approach data.
Yeah. I think it's how we approach it and the accessibility to it. Right. We have 180 pre-built connectors to systems out there today, whether that be Salesforce, ServiceNow, Amazon S3 buckets, Azure, Genesis Cloud, RingCentral, TalkDesk, UJet, Zoom Contact Center, Zoom Phone, Amazon Connect.
So anybody who's anybody.
Right? We can plug in, we can pull in your data, your call recordings, and we can start these things. It really is just about finding one challenge that you have and giving it a shot.
And sometimes customers don't know the challenge, or they don't know the right challenge. So you just have to go to the experts and say, well, let's see what.
Well, and finding that right challenge, though, that's where I feel like our product is best used when working with a partner like yourself, because you as that partner can go into these clients and help them find the best place to start.
Yeah.
Right. And then help them get this into practice, and then be their partner in always finding those next challenges to solve, but now based on data. And those challenges to solve might not be in our platform. And that's great too, right? That may be, we've identified that the biggest challenge we have is audio quality in our headsets.
Yeah.
Right. And that's causing low CSAT, and we're not able to book the rooms that we were at the rate last month. So we're going to order new headsets for that queue, and next month solved.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So it's really just about, now partnering right with the right partner with the right solution in order to really maximize the value of what you have.
Yeah. We spend a ton of time with conferences and learning, trying to understand the market so that we can bring that value when we come in and listen to the customers and say, what are the challenges and how can we add value in the earliest possible time? So, when we think about KPIs, what do you think is, best to focus on first when you're trying to measure success? I mean, do you typically start with looking at this or this is a typical thing, just to give the audience an idea?
Sure. So I think a good example is going back to bots. A lot of people are talking about bots, right? Yeah. And if all you're measuring on bots is containment, you're probably missing something, right? Yeah. Because that's right. You've got to look at the outcomes and how that's affecting your CSAT, how it's affecting your agents, all right, how it's affecting the other people in the organization who are taking the transfers from that bot, all of the things that it can cause from it. And so I think the metrics that you need to look at are less about the interaction itself in real time, but more about the outcomes that happen afterwards. And then after you can understand that, then you can change what's happening in real time. So maybe an example would be, to focus on your upsell percentage, right? And your conversion rate. And then if that is, going down, then you can have a challenge to solve, right? Rather than your talk time. Because at the end of the day, if it's taking them 2 more minutes, but you're closing 10% more, I think you're still going to be happy. And then we can figure out how to get that talk time down, right? It's that we were working with a client the other day who's looking to solve a challenge. They're out there vetting vendors. They're a boutique hotel organization. And, they want to learn how, to your point, they have hotel representatives at the front desk answering the phone. not a traditional contact center, right?
Right.
Agent at the front desk answering the phone, and they want to know if the people who are calling are saying, I want to book a room and a massage, or if I just want to book a room.
Right.
Because they want to be able to tell if that upsell was the agent who did it or the customer asking for it. They also want to know if a hotel rep who answered that call, right, said, hey, typically when someone books that room, they love to get a massage with it.
Right.
Right.
Upsell.
Right. And now we have percentages on those to track, right, with your CSAT rate. So you can tell, is that going down or up depending on, and if we can just anytime, right, and put those into a coaching room and say like, hey, that rep had 5 calls yesterday. 3 of them they didn't ask for anything on. You should coach them. And then you can look at the report tomorrow and see what difference that made. Right?
You know, that goes back to revenue, increased revenue. And by the way, I want to book at that hotel that books me my massage too.
Right, right.
But no, I mean, I think it's really important to understand that holistic, where you can just book a hotel or you can book a massage, and maybe they book a dinner and make the experience special.
Correct.
And I've been doing a ton of traveling lately, and it is about the experience. You want them to have that memory. You want them to go be inspired. I was just in Aruba on a cruise with my mom, and we went to this amazing restaurant, 2 Fools in a Bowl. And literally it inspired me to do a TripAdvisor review. And it was my first one because I'm never inspired to do that.
Right.
And it's like, whoa, I went through the effort of, okay, I'm going to figure this out. It was that good. It was that great of an experience. And I think that's the important thing that businesses need to tie into is, am I telling staff that is in charge of revenue? I mean, we all, if you work for a company, everybody sells. Everybody sells. So you want to make sure as the leadership that you're empowering people with the knowledge to say, did you know when you're booking a hotel that you can easily, book that dinner reservation, or, how can you help them get concert tickets, or whatever they need to do. The more that you do, the more that I'm going to call that company back when I'm in town again, because they made everything easier.
That's right. And maybe you see that every time someone asks, are you celebrating anything special?
Yeah.
That they typically upsell, right?
Yes.
And so now you put that into your coaching, right?
I love
and
that.
So it's just the little things can make such a big difference.
Well, in the advancement in analytics and AI are really helping add that value to organizations. However, because we have all these different platforms, which one are you using? Are they tied together? Are they really giving you the data? So I think that's really helped the ability to say, tell me what I need to know.
That's right. Tell me what I need to know. You don't have to know what to ask for. You can say, tell me what I should know.
Yeah.
Right. And that is what we need today. Because I can tell you, I've talked to a lot of people who are managing an analytics system that they bought 10 years ago, and they don't want to change it out, because if they do, it's going to expose a lot of things that they weren't looking for.
Right.
Right. And so that is a little uncomfortable for some people. And so that change is not always easy, but today we have to know what you're not looking for.
Right. And I say, don't be afraid of what you find, because now you're going to be the hero saying, hey, let's do this. Don't waste another day.
So true.
It is. So let's talk about a success story. I know you mentioned a little bit, but let's talk about a success story where Success KPI made a significant impact on a client's operations or outcomes.
Sure. So I think one of them that may be relatable to others is there was actually an organization who reached out to us. They're a BPO, and they have to follow, as most do, some pretty strict guidelines on scripting for certain things that need to be said at the right time. And unfortunately, that wasn't happening in the right ways, and that was causing some client dissatisfaction and some looks from some certain people that they didn't want looks from.
Right.
So they said, how can you help us solve this? And so what we did is we plugged into the audio stream that's exposed in real time, and a lot of your contact center providers do that. They'll expose that audio stream in real time. And so now anytime anyone is asking for credit card information or not saying the right scripting at the right time, the supervisors are alerted in real time to take action. And immediately, right, overnight, the risk went down significantly. Client satisfaction went through the roof, and they've been able to gain more new clients than before because they have this extra layer of security in that others don't.
And security and compliance are just crucial these days, are they not?
Yeah, especially when you're talking data. So that's something else to mention. So we are secure up and down around the globe from SOC 2, HIPAA, even FedRAMP. So if there's, an analytics company out there who needs to check all the boxes, we're definitely that one.
I love that because we started our government practice last year selling to Fed and SLED. And that's a different language, totally.
It is.
And honestly, there's a lot of companies out there that are not FedRAMP, so they can't sell to the federal government. But I love that about our relationship, that we can bring you to the table. And, you have to have those solutions when you're talking to people, and I love that about Success KPI.
Yeah, you can imagine the conversations that we're having currently about automation and efficiency in the federal space right now with these types of solutions.
Yeah, most definitely. So as we begin to wrap up, let's talk about some emerging trends or technologies that you're most excited about, and how is Success KPI preparing to adapt or lead in those areas?
So actually, I'm excited to say that we were the first analytics company to publicly release our AI product roadmap. And I think that had a lot to do with our placing in the Frost Radar. You can find some more information about that in the WEM solutions on their website or ours. But, from an AI perspective, as I mentioned before, our chief product officer has done a really good job over the years at making sure that AI has always been part of what we do. You just may not know it as a user because it's just invisibly making your job easier. So with the releases of Gen AI and Agentic AI, that's, definitely just things that we've always had in our thought process that were part of our roadmap. As you mentioned, like me and my journey, I'm always thinking 2 steps ahead.
Right.
Success KPI were that way as well. And so when our Gen AI release dropped months ago and our clients started using it before we released it to new prospects, the results were just so exciting. And, I think one of them that I would talk about is kind of the advancement of auto QM, from in the past of having to kind of train a model to score your calls to now being able just to flip a checkbox and say, score them all, and then I'll train that model over time. So that made a big difference, as well as one of our new launches in the Gen AI portfolio is called Deep Prompts, which is currently patent pending. And that is the easiest way for me to describe it as a salesperson, and my product team kind of shivers when I say this because I dumb it down, is kind of Chat GPT for a business user on your transcripts. So if you've got a transcript of all of your calls, and I go into our system and I'm a business user, you or me, anyone can get in there and say, in the calls for the last 30 days, tell me in 3 sentences what I could have done better, what I missed, what the good things were I did, and what I should coach my agents on to next time, and it'll give me that information. I think one of the most powerful things to think about is CSAT, NPS, surveys. They're all based on who responds. Right? So at the end of the day, we all know they're a little subjective. You could use a product like this to say, on a scale of 0 to 100, right? Give me a rating on how my customers see us doing based on these factors. Right?
Sentiment.
Right. The sentiment of the call, how long it took, what was the sentiment at the beginning versus the end. And you press enter, and it's just there, and it tells you that score, right? And all of these outputs become data then that you can track over time and manage. And so it's really it's the more creative you can be with your prompts, the different outcomes that you can see here. It was a fun, exciting thing we did internally with our engineers. It's like, who can come up with the most creative prompts here, and get really exciting with our customers. But I think that's where I think you're going to see most of the use cases evolve from in the Gen AI portfolio around this idea of prompting your transcripts to really understand what's happening.
Well, and it's amazing to me how many companies are still manually doing their quality management. When you have a human have to touch and manually listen to calls and score them, it's just not going to be as accurate. There's going to be mistakes made. They're going to miss something. They're going to get distracted, and you can do a very small handful. But when you have the ability to go, tell me all of my calls and prioritize, and give me 3 actionable items out of that. Wow, the power that you get off of that. It's just exciting. But there's, a lot of companies don't necessarily prioritize that they don't understand the value of the data that they already have. They just don't know how to pull it together.
It reminds me of a call I was on just, I think, last week with a finance company where they have a quality control team who isn't quality management, quality control. So they're looking at quality on processes in an organization, not what an agent's doing on a call, right? And they're doing this in spreadsheets, thousands of spreadsheets over the years, right?
Yeah.
That they're tracking all of this in. Like, we want an application to do this in. So I said, no problem. Like, you can do that in our application. Doesn't matter if it's in something that an agent handled or a back office task. You can create a form. You can answer those questions, right? And now we can do this all out of Excel, and we can trend it, and we can report on it.
You can say, what's our process and what could be better?
Correct.
You
and
make a recommendation on improving process. And what would it take? And
all of these things. And then, but we have the VP on the call who comes off mute and says, this is all great, but what can you automate? Right?
Love it.
Because he's like, while your job may be easier, it doesn't save me any money. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so,
again, always about saving money.
And
right?
so
increase revenue, save money.
So the customer came back and said, like, we have to figure out a way to bring automation in here. And so now, right, we're working together on that story. But yeah, it's all about understanding the challenge and bringing it back to the stakeholders.
So if you could give one piece of advice to a company that is considering working with somebody like Success KPI, what would it be?
That's a good question.
Just do it.
Yeah. I would think, I would say it's more simple than you think.
Yeah.
It's not as scary as what you think.
You're so right. I named Symplicity because I knew we could make it easier, right? But it can be complex. Like, what provider should I use? What are they going to offer? And there's just the way IT has been purchasing the last 20 years. It's different. You have to purchase differently. You have to think differently, and it's okay. And things have been transformed. So I love that. I love taking it from the approach of, it's easier. Let's just let it tell you what you need to do. Like,
it doesn't have to be so hard. It really doesn't have to be that hard.
Yes. Start ingesting the data. So let's talk about how they can find information on Success KPI.
Sure. So successkpi.com. We're also on LinkedIn. You can also find me on LinkedIn, and we'd love to hear from you.
That's right. You can reach out to Symplicity at www.simplicitycom.com, and we have a straight line to Success KPI. So thank you so much, Erin, for being here today. I love the conversation that we have. I love kind of nerding out with data and analytics. And I think it's that unknown magic that every company possesses that they don't realize that they've got it already. The data, you just have to figure out how to tap in and start using it to make better decisions. And they're gonna increase revenues, right?
So true. I will be happy to nerd out with you any day. I think that's one thing I've learned about myself in the past couple of years. I think I'm more of a nerd than I knew, and that's kind of fun. So
definitely,
anytime.
Definitely. Well, we'll have to do a little event at our Symplicity's new office and have you there, and can show people what you can do. So thank you so much for listening to Symplicity Conversations. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and visit us at thesimplepodcast.com to connect and learn more about inspiring leaders like Erin. See you next time.